Hey everybody, this is Grace. In this video I'm going to talk about more about Stacie and her experiences with her crazy neighbors. Now the neighbors aren't crazy, and crazy isn't a diagnosis anyway, but their behaviors are sometimes pretty crazy, pretty weird, and suspicious. See, they used to always, some of the neighbors were really suspicious of Stacie and her husband, their family. Her husband Joe, and there was no reason to be. And she finally, over lots of years, started to think maybe it's them. It just wasn't. She wasn't really, all that into her neighbors or the neighborhood. Really, she seldom ever went out front, where anybody would see her. But then, more recent years, strange. There were situations, and they said strange things. Like one of them was even that they should be able to hear everything that goes on inside her house. Okay, and her backyard. Well, there, I'm going to say her because I'm talking about Stacie. And so anyway, she started to see from the moment they moved in, right after they moved in, strange things were happening, and that verified that the neighbors were suspicious of her, her and her family. And there was no reason, like I said. So, over the years, she started to realize it's the neighbors who should be, she should be suspicious of. Like I said, some people would realize that right away, but she just wasn't into it. I mean, her life was too busy to think about what was going on with these neighbors, you see. And all those situations, it just wasn't part of her day, to think about it, until it started getting weird with things being said like that. That they should know they should be able to hear what goes on in their house. Okay, now I don't know where I left off in the last video, but more recent thoughts about it was, she had, like I said, so many strange things happen with her neighbors, and I can relate to some of them over my lifetime since I was a child. But isn't that kind of, it could be, it could maybe not be, but people have suspicions of neighbors, and that, is it really like a bad thing? Think about it, So, but, to constantly be suspicious. Here you are in your home, and you're in your neighborhood, and all that suspicion about a neighbor, but are they doing something that is suspicious that causes it? Stacie is thought of like the Mrs. Kravitz, but I remember saying even when I was a child that Mrs. Kravitz isn't wrong. Okay. Thinking, from that show Bewitched. Yeah, I grew up on that. So I was like, but she's not wrong. Little kid. Okay, but she's not wrong. So, and Stacie is not wrong, but she worries, now that she started thinking about it more and seeing more strange things and hearing more strange things, she doesn't want to be paranoid. She doesn't want to become paranoid about it. Okay, so anyway, so more recently, she got reminded of some things that they have done before, and that is that they warn them about things. I think I may have mentioned some of that in another video. The neighbors, especially one particular family, they'll have one member, and it's not always the same member, come over to their house when they could call them or text them, but come over to their house and tell them that they saw something in the neighborhood, or like a bobcat, or there's a dog on the loose, or there's even things like snakes, poisonous snakes, perhaps. But every once in a while, that's what happens. Somebody comes over and tells them that, or warns them that. Like, and Stacie finally started, the more recent time, Stacie finally said, you know, they're trying to get us to stay inside the house. Maybe, see, now that's where she says, no, I don't want to become paranoid. But really, how often in any neighborhood does anybody need to go to somebody else's house and tell them, you know, that something's in the neighborhood? I mean, something is going around in the neighborhood. Yeah, that's a strange way that road goes. It used to be a different way years ago. So, okay, now Stacie herself has known that they're strange. You know, she's seen things like raccoons just walking around on the sidewalks like they own the place, and just taking their time, not scared of cars or anything, and you know, wild raccoons. And she's seen a coyote at her front door. It looked like it was starving, and she's actually killed baby rattlesnakes. Okay, and you know, outside her front door, different times, so you know, so they won't still be there and hurt them, you know, hurt any family member. So she's had to do, you know, buck it up and kill them. It's not, I know that's not an easy thing to do, but so, you know, so she has to wonder, really. Okay, because now as we know, some people, even Stacie, would say that's a nice thing for people to do, is to, you know, warn that there's snakes outside or something. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, but some people, you know, even Stacie would say, you know, it's good if you're outside and you see or you hear somebody talk about there's a bobcat running around in the neighborhood, or a coyote or whatever, that it would be good to warn your neighbors, you know, and they pass it on. They can text. They have the phone number though. But they come to the front door to knock on the door, and cause in the process the dogs go crazy and stuff like that. You know? So it's easier just to text or to call, I would think. But anyway, but like I said, Stacie doesn't want to. She's getting this really odd feeling like she doesn't want to be paranoid, to question every time her neighbor does something like that. You know, comes over and warns. You know, one of them, whichever one, whatever adult decides to come over and say it, and but yeah, she's just not sure. I mean, if it would have been any other neighbor, perhaps, but not the same family repeatedly. The one that said that they should be able to hear what's going on in their house, in their backyard. You see what I'm saying? And like I said, I can relate to some of these in these stories. So anyway, she, you know, this time she says it's just too much, you know, because there always some kind of wild something in the neighborhood, you know, whether it's a coyote, a raccoon, or, you know, like Stacie'd seen raccoons, snakes, whatever. Yeah. So, okay, had to get myself something to eat. Us something to eat. But anyway, so I mean, if you were in this kind of situation where, you know, there's a neighbor who's always, or not always, but often, just finds reasons to come over, and instead of just calling or texting, but sometimes the neighbor does, but not always, and had said such weird things. Maybe they were thinking because they're close, you know, to the house, they couldn't, or they're always outside, that they would be able to hear what goes on in your house. Or see what goes on in your backyard from their upstairs, maybe. But watch the other videos, because there was a lot that happens, and but there's not really anything she can do about it, because there's no proof. she doesn't want, to call, like Mrs. Kravitz. Why, is she going to continue to call the, police? I think Mrs. Kravitz, she would call the police or something. She would tell her husband. Her husband wouldn't believe her, but remember, she was not wrong. So, they cut down some of these bushes here because, seriously, it was impossible to see around it. But they didn't cut enough. Yeah. There's a huge bush. I mean, these are like as tall as the buildings. Shrubs. And they had to cut off like a big old corner of it so people wouldn't get hurt. I think, yeah. But like I said, they didn't cut up enough. Who's doing it? You start the job, you finish the job, you do the job right. Okay. If it's a job, that's what you do. So, anyway. Okay, so Stacie's neighbor does this again, and comes by and comes up with a story, and there's a hint there that, well, maybe you should stay inside and not go outside. And Stacie had already started to get suspicious of, like I said, of them all around, but especially about not wanting them to be outside in the front, in their front yard or on their front driveway, wherever outside front, and or any at all, saying things like, there's a bobcat, there's a wild bobcat, there's a wild whatever. Okay. And well, they just didn't let it stop them, and they went out, and she's been out a few times, and so has her husband, and she's noticed that when she does go out, they're not there. Nobody is there in their driveway, which they have several cars and several automobiles, and they're usually several adults who have automobiles living there. And she wonders, why would it make a difference if they're not there? Okay. I mean, what's going on? Well, one of her suspicions came about because, quite a long while before, was because that they would they would all leave on weekends. Okay, they just leave and not return, which she never thought much of it until she started getting suspicious of them. Okay, the schools must have let out early. It's not even noon, and it's not time until next week they can get out early, and they get out of school totally. So I don't know. So I think next week, yeah. So that was weird. I think it's next week. It could be different in this school district, so maybe that's the case. It was different in this school district. Do you remember how it was to be let out of school and yay for school for summer? Let out for summer. Yeah. But anyway, so where was I? Talking about Stacie and her husband Joe. He's not really into that kind of thing, to even think about it either. Well, she wasn't either until she needed to, until there were some things that were said that were way too weird for her. And that's when she was like, no, I need to keep my eyes open, and really start paying attention, because those things were very strange. But anyway, I mean, I still don't know why it wouldn't make any difference, that they're not there, okay? Unless there's just something going on that they don't want them to see. They don't want them to see that they come and go, and to start figuring it out. How all of the cars will be gone for days or something like that, and start to wonder themselves what's truly going on. Or maybe, as has happened before, somebody came knocking on their door trying to find them, and some people were just sitting there in front of their house before, just waiting for them for hours. Yeah. Anyway, I'm wrapping it up. I'll talk to you on the